Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for The Flash, Season 1, Episode 3, Things You Can't Outrun. And this was another great episode, and I don't really understand it, guys. How can The Flash do these kind of episodes, where you have the procedural element and the serial drama element, but then Gotham doesn't handle it as well? I don't understand that, but we're not talking about Gotham, we're going to talk about The Flash. This was another great episode. I love this episode. I thought it was fantastic. By far the best episode of the season so far. I know we're only 3 episodes in, but I already love this show. And I really love this episode. Thought it was absolutely fantastic. And let's just get to it because I really, really enjoyed it. So we actually start off with a monologue from Barry. He's kind of talking about how, he's the fastest man alive and how there are certain things you can't outrun. And even if, you're not the fastest man alive or you're the slowest man alive, you got to keep running. And I thought that was a very good quote, what he said. I definitely really enjoyed that. So it opens up with Barry and Iris leaving a theater, and on the sign there's a double feature for Blue Devil 2 and the Rita Farr story. Whatever they saw, though, was apparently a zombie movie, as that's what Barry is comparing it to. So that was definitely very funny. So first, Thawne calls for, basically, now I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy that Iris is dating, now I can't remember his name. Oh, Eddie. Eddie calls Iris on the phone, and then, Cisco calls Barry, and Iris is distracted talking to Eddie, basically. Barry slips off to where the police are chasing someone following an armed robbery, pulls them out of the car, pulls them back in the back of the police car, rushes back to Iris' side, and he asks if she wants to get food, since he's starving, and I thought that was definitely a really funny way to, start it. But then we get probably one of the craziest scenes on the show so far. We see the Darbian crime family. They're meeting at this restaurant called Armogian Oasis, and they find themselves surrounded by gas. They're just talking. Literally, all of them are just surrounded by gas and killed one by one. Like, that was insane. I was just like, what is going on here? That is just crazy, and it was an awesome scene, but, like, it was definitely very, very crazy what happened, but I did think at the same time it was pretty awesome. So, Barry then joins Joe at the police department, and Joe has brought all of the old case files from Barry's father's murder trial to Barry's lab, because basically that's their main thing right now. They want to find out who murdered, murdered his father. So, he says he plans to help him excarnate his dad, and Eddie comes in to tell the pair about the Darbian massacre. So at the restaurant, they figure out that the poison would have had to be inside the building since the doors are latched from the inside, and Barry realizes that it looks like various victims got more or less far away from the table than others, suggesting that perhaps they were being attacked one by one, and the gas was being directed rather than dispersed. So that was definitely very interesting to hear that. So at Star Labs, Barry discusses theories as to how the killer might operate with the team. And Joe says he doesn't care how it works, he just cares about putting the bad guys in jail. But a jail won't hold this guy, and that does make, he's basically saying a jail's not going to hold this guy, and he asked the team to think of a better solution. And Cisco suggested they could reuse restructured parts of the particle accelerator to serve as a prison, and that's definitely very interesting. Basically, he wants to make a prison for these humans, for these humans that are different from everyone else. I can't remember what they're called, but he wants to make a prison for them, and I think that definitely is very interesting. And I'm wondering if that definitely is going to happen, because that does make sense, because again, Barry promised Oliver he's not going to kill anyone, so that definitely makes sense. So we see flashbacks in this episode, but they're not about Barry. They're about Caitlin. We find out a lot more about Caitlin and her husband in this episode. Caitlin starts thinking about how she flashes back to the night the accelerator was turned on, and she and Ronnie are making honeymoon plans because, he was her fiancé. And the mood is genuinely very celebratory, and Harrison turns on the particle accelerator, and after popping a bottle of champagne, the stream is suspended in the air briefly, splashes down, and there's a loud bang. And you can tell right away that what's going to happen. And Harrison snaps her out of her thoughts. It was very sad to see that, but I gotta say, I was very happy we got some development with her character, because we know that Caitlin had this with her fiance. You know, we know that she's going through a lot of trauma and, trouble. She's very troubled right now. So it was good to see this, because we needed to see this, definitely. So I thought that was very good that we saw that. So, basically, he's asking her to come to the particle accelerator with him and Cisco, but Barry sees that she's very uncomfortable with it and asks to take her back to the police station to help with the investigation. Because, it was just too much for her. Obviously, this is where her fiance died. It makes a lot of sense why she doesn't want to turn it on. So at the department, everyone is very, very shitty to Barry, who has to use Caitlin for cover so that he can use his powers to sneak up to his lab and complete a report at super speed for Singe. So, back at home, Joe is watching the old video of Henry's interrogation. And it's basically the video that we saw in the pilot episode. Henry telling the arresting officer that Joe would vouch for him, that he's not a killer. And Iris comes in and he closes the laptop quickly, explaining that's for its work stuff. And again, Iris has no idea about this. So Eddie shows up, obviously for Iris, but has to cover himself up because, of course, Joe has no idea that they're dating. And tells Joe that he's looking for him so they can re-sweep the restaurant crime scene. And on the way out, he tells Iris that they have to tell her father about their relationship. Which they do. They can't keep hiding things about it. I definitely agree that they do need to tell him. And, I thought that was definitely, a really good scene. So, we go down into the belly of the particle accelerator, and Cisco begins to flash back again. We see another flashback to the night of the accident as well. And he and Ronnie Raymond had gone down into the machine when the alarm started to go off. And in the hopes of stopping the explosion and saving the lives of everyone in the building, Ronnie told Cisco to close the shielded doors and save the others if Ronnie wasn't back in 2 minutes, which Cisco grudgingly agreed to do only after Ronnie told him that saving Caitlin was important enough. Also, the guy that played Ronnie was actually the guy that played Steven on The Tomorrow People last year, which I enjoyed that show. I never actually finished it, but it was canceled, so I'm glad that they put him on the show, because here's the thing, he is a very good actor. He definitely is a very good actor, and I'm glad that they did put him on the show, so I'm glad that they had a little bit, for him to do. So that was definitely really good. So Harrison again calls Cisco out of his flashback and offers a shoulder if he needs to talk, but Cisco redirects, talking instead about the technical specifications of the changes they'll need to make. And at the crime lab, Caitlin and Barry are talking about Ronnie. And, they talk about how they were like fire and ice, and he made her laugh. And they were basically just perfect together. They were the perfect couple. And we can see that in the flashbacks. They really were just perfect. And, they even joked about watching Orange is the New Black on TV, that's how close they were, really. So, he was only there that night to be with her. He wasn't supposed to be working. And, that definitely was very big that we found that out, because, basically he wasn't supposed to be working. He was there to be with her. So, they find a second strand of DNA inside the lungs of one of the victims, indicating that the meta-human they're chasing can't just control gas, but can actually become it. And the DNA doesn't come up in any database. So, at a mall, the killer attacks a judge in the elevator, implying that she had given him the death penalty. So, word comes over the radio that there's a gas attack in progress. And Barry suits up and rushes to the mall to try to help, and the judge is dead. And the judge is already dead when he arrives, but he sees a cloud of gas and rushes off to confront the killer. The killer is very unrepentant and says there's only one more name on his list. And Barry's trying to punch him, but the killer becomes very intangible and then knocks Barry around a little and tries to poison him too. And Barry almost dies because of this, but luckily he has very fast metabolism that saves him, and he rushes to Star Labs. And the gas in his lungs constitutes a live sample of what's going on, so they had to remove it with a syringe. And he wakes up, and they start to analyze it. And Barry made this really funny joke of how he felt like how he did when he, something with, drugs or something for the first time. It was definitely really funny. He said he was just, a rebellious kid. I really like the way they're doing that. They are adding a lot of, humor to the show. While this is a very emotional show, Arrow is clearly the more emotional show, and I like that Flash is different because it's more of a humorous show. While it is a very dramatic show, it has a lot of humor in it, which I definitely really like. So Barry leaves to talk with Joe, and I thought that this was just an amazing scene. I personally love this scene, and this really made me realize, okay, this is definitely the best episode of the season. Because they explain that the killer can transform into gas, not just control, and he feels guilty for not saving the judge, and likens the guilt to having been unable to help his parents as a kid. Now, this really goes back again to that conversation you had with Oliver. I know I keep bringing that up, but it's such a crucial thing because we know that this is all going to build up to that Arrow versus Flash crossover fight that's going to happen. So, he really wants to save everyone, but I really like what Joe says to him. He says that they just spend their lives on the run and promises Barry that he's not going to get his dad out the right way. And he says, basically, he can't save everyone. For every person he's going to save, there's going to be someone he's not going to be able to save. And I definitely agree with Joe. Even though Barry wants to, he's not going to be able to save everyone, and he needs to accept that, he is not their savior. He is not unstoppable, basically. He can get himself hurt. He's not going to be able to save everyone. It's not going to, always work out his way. And he needs to accept that. And he needs to accept that while he wants to be a hero, he's not a miracle worker. He's not. Even though he wants to be, he's not a miracle worker. He's not a god, basically, that can just stop things. Yes, he can do things and very, fast, so no one will notice that he's there, but he can't stop everything. So it was definitely a very good scene. I thought that was just a perfect scene because it really sums up what Barry is trying to do. And I thought that was definitely very well done. So at the police department, Eddie is fielding calls reporting a red streak at the gas attack. And again, it's the red streak. When they say a red streak, again, they're referencing the Flash, which I really like that they're calling it the red streak because, no one suspects that it's Barry at this point. I think that's really cool the way they're doing that. And I definitely do really enjoy that. So Iris shows up to talk to him, and she tells him that she's going to come clean to her dad. That's the only thing stopping her, had been that telling Joe will make the relationship real. Because if Joe finds out, she has no idea how his reaction's going to be. She doesn't know if he's going to be happy, and basically whatever his reaction is basically what their relationship ends up, So I thought that was definitely very interesting. And then we get what was probably the saddest scene in the episode. I mean, this scene was just really, really sad because Barry goes to Caitlin. She's obviously very, very upset right now, and he can tell that she's very upset. He can tell that she's hurting and is not in very good shape at all, and is not in the best position either. She definitely is in a very bad place, not really a good place right now. And they come and they talk about Ronnie and Nora, and he offers to go into the hole with her so that she doesn't have to face it alone. And then we see the flashback when basically Ronnie died. Cisco closed the door and she comes to get Ronnie, but it's too late. Ronnie calls on a walkie-talkie saying that he's redirected the vents so that the explosion should go up inside of it instead of it sparing the people in the building. And she tells Barry that she's upset. Nobody will ever know what he did. And basically he saved everyone. So that definitely is very interesting. And what's also interesting is that Ronnie was a hero. And, basically she says how Ronnie died a hero. I'm not making predictions to the end of the show yet, but my prediction is that something definitely, I'm thinking by the end of the show, Barry is going to die, just because of how Ronnie died a hero and how Barry wants to be a hero. Ronnie basically saved everyone, and Barry kind of wants to do the same thing. So I like the way they're sort of comparing Ronnie to Barry. It's a very strange sort of, comparison, but it definitely does make sense. So I thought that was a very well done scene, and here's the thing. He wasn't even supposed to be on duty. He was just there to be her husband, just to have fun, just to basically take her home. And she says, probably the saddest line in the episode, she didn't want him to be a hero, she wanted him to be her husband. And that is just, it's so sad that had to happen to her. It's so sad that any of this had happened to her. And after this, Caitlin is definitely one of my favorite characters. I definitely sympathize with her character more than I thought I would. I love her character, and she's just such a great character. Because you feel the pain that she's in. You definitely feel it. You feel for her, and I definitely really enjoyed that. So, at the lab, Barry's figuring out that the chemical complex in the poison gas is the same as they give penalty prisoners, leading them to realize that Kyle Nimbus had been affected by the particle accelerator blast as he was being executed, and they figure out his connections to the crime family and the judge, and deduce that the next victim will be the arresting officer, Joe. Now, that's obviously a very bad thing, and I was like, I was wondering what's going to happen there, definitely. So before he rushes out, Caitlin gives him a vial of antidote in case he needs it. And basically, they're very concerned about Joe because he knows that something bad could happen to Joe, and he doesn't want Joe to die, obviously, so he wants to save Joe. So Joe basically has gone to Iron Heights to visit Henry. Basically because this has been his mission. He promised Barry he would help him with this, and he wants to keep his promise to Barry. Because as we know, Barry was not exactly happy with him last week. He was not happy how Joe was kind of making him choose his job over being a hero. And definitely Joe is trying to make up for that. You can definitely see that in this episode. So he tells Henry how sorry he is, and he knows that Henry is innocent. Henry is very steely, but says that it doesn't matter. Joe never believed in him because Joe, always believed in Barry. And I thought that was a great line that he said. And Barry calls Eddie, who directs him to Iron Heights, and Barry arrives just after the missiles attack the garden, Joe leaving both down. And there's a moment where I thought, I'm like, are they seriously about to kill off Joe? I'm like, there's no way they're going to kill off Joe. He's like the second main character of the show. There's no way they're going to kill him off. Luckily, Barry saves Joe, which I knew was coming. I mean, they weren't going to kill Joe. If they killed Joe, that'd be ridiculous. I don't understand. I don't think they would have killed Joe, but, like, there was a part of me that was wondering, are they going to kill Joe here? Like, they can't kill Joe, can they? There was just a part of me that I wasn't sure. So, basically, outside, he confronts Nimbus. Barry saves Joe with the antidote, vibrating his face the whole time so that Henry can't see his features and identify him. So he confronts Kyle over the comms. They remind him that without the antidote, he can't breathe in any of the mist. They suggest Barry make Kyle chase him, and that continuous use of his powers will exhaust him and eventually works, and when Kyle reforms, take a breath, Barry punched him out, and that was definitely really, really good. So that was a really awesome scene. I gotta say, I know a lot of people have been talking about this, but the action scenes in this show are like movie quality. Like, they are definitely really awesome, and they improve more and more every episode, so I definitely really enjoy that. So at the hospital, Joe wakes up to see Barry. He's dozing in a chair beside him, and they talk for a few moments before Iris comes in with Eddie. And she confesses that she's dating him, but Joe tells him he knows he's a detective and they're terrible liars, and, it doesn't seem like he's mad. It appears that he's not exactly that mad, and Eddie says, you're not mad, but he says he is mad, but that he wants her to be happy and will do his best not to shoot him. And it was a hilarious reaction. It's a typical father reaction, definitely. It's a typical father-daughter reaction. I think it definitely was very funny to see that, and I really like that scene. And I like how protective Joe is. It really was funny there. I thought that was definitely really, really good. So, in the particle accelerator's Area 52, the mist pounds ineffectively against his cell walls, and Caitlin isn't comfortable with working upstairs from a meta-human prison. Basically, they have built a prison, and Harrison's telling her that she'll get used to it, and Cisco starts to tell her something about the night of the accident, but Caitlin cuts him off, saying that she's okay, that she loves Ronnie even more, remembering when he sacrificed, and that she wants ice cream and or a drink. So you can definitely see that her remembering and Barry helping her has actually helped her cope with it, and I think she's better now. I think she will be better after this, and I'm glad to see that Caitlin is basically on good terms with herself right now. I thought that was definitely really good, because she needs to stop beating herself up over this, definitely. So Barry goes to see Henry. They talk about Nora, and Henry says that Barry was slow to walk, and that when he eventually did, it was to run straight into his mother's arms. And it's a very sad scene, of course, because his mother died, and Barry speeds through the city. He saves a purse-snatching victim. We see Iris blogging about the streak, which is definitely very interesting, that she's basically has, like, a blog about him. So if she finds out that Barry is the red streak, that definitely is going to be very interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there. We see Caitlin and Cisco laughing, and then back at Star Labs, we get the very last scene, basically another post-credit scene. I don't know why all these superhero shows are doing post-credit scenes, and all these, like, comic book shows are doing them. Walking Dead did one, Flash did one, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. does one every single episode, but I don't know why they're doing so many, but I guess they just like it. We see Harrison stares at the Flash costume, and then as a flashback to the night of the accident of his own. And this was definitely very interesting, because after getting the message from Cisco that Ronnie has saved them, Harrison says he'll be right down. He enters the secret chamber, pulls up a surveillance video of Barry being struck by lightning, and says, "See you soon, Barry." And that's basically how the episode ends. And I thought that was an awesome way to end the episode. And now I kind of have this other theory about Harrison. I don't feel that only Harrison is from the future. I feel that maybe Cisco and, Caitlin and all them, I feel like they are sort of in on it. And they don't want to tell Barry, because I think they were pretty much in on it. I really feel like they were, because they've been working with Harrison so long. Obviously, he had to tell them how Barry was going to be there, and I'm interested in seeing if maybe we find out if that's true. So, I definitely really enjoyed this episode. There are a lot of things I definitely want to talk about. The other thing is I love seeing more expansion on Caitlin's character. I thought that was great. I love the character development with her. I definitely feel like Caitlin's in a good place with herself now. You know, the first 2 episodes, she was not very happy. She was very upset, obviously very devastated. Her fiance died, obviously. She's very devastated over it. So now I think she's in a good place with herself, and I'm happy that she is in a good place with herself, and I hope she stays in that good place because I like seeing Caitlin happy, and I hope that she stays happy because I definitely really enjoy that. So, as far as Iris and Eddie go, that was just hilarious to see Joe react the way he did. That's going to be funny to see how that works out. As far as Henry goes, I really love seeing these Henry-Barry conversations. I hope we get more of Barry and his father having these prison conversations because it really does things very, really is a very good scene to watch because we know, of course, Henry's the innocent one here. And again, I am interested in seeing who was the one that murdered his mother. I have no idea at this point. I really have no idea, and I like that the show pretty much isn't really giving us clues to any of that. So that definitely is very well done, and I definitely really enjoy that as well. The other thing I'm really enjoying about the show is the narrations. The narrations are fantastic, and I'm loving the way they're doing that. It's definitely something that's a little bit different from Arrow. Arrow doesn't do narrations except for the previous thing, and I definitely really enjoy that a lot. So that was definitely very well done. And I can't wait for next week's episode because Felicity will be on it. Felicity will be guest starring. That's going to be hilarious to watch. I can't wait to see what happens there. We do know that her and Barry have some chemistry, so that might end up causing the Arrow and Flash, fight, because we know that Oliver does love, I do think he has feelings for Felicity. I don't know, maybe they'll explain why Felicity ends up meeting with Barry in the next episode of Arrow. I don't know. Or it seems like, what happens in The Flash happens after what happens in, happens after what happens in Arrow. So, I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see. But, that's it for my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for tonight's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. By the way, guys, I will not be reviewing Sons of Anarchy tonight because I'm watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. live. I want to review that for you guys. I'll review Sons of Anarchy tomorrow night, and, yeah, so I'll see you guys for that, okay? And let me know what you guys saw this episode, and the show in general. I love hearing your thoughts, so I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.